Hi everyone. A very warm morning, afternoon, mix of both. So we have been having a lot of great discussions since morning, right? So I have a very exciting folks with me who are going to give you a sneak peek of the world of AI engineer, right? So probably we'll start with how the session is going to be, right? First is we'll have a short introduction between us. Second, I will have a very candid, open discussion with them. Then we'll have a pause and we'll have some, probably round where we can have you give the opportunity to ask questions, right? So with that, let me introduce myself, and then I can request all of my co-panelists to introduce. Ankit, Bose, I had AI at NASSCOM. So one question: how many of here folks know what is NASSCOM? Okay, quite a bit. Right. So NASSCOM is a 37-year-old body, right? So it was started with the starting emerging trend of tech, right? We pioneered the tech. It has come a long way, right? And I manage AI in NASSCOM. So what we do, we work with government, we work with startups, we incubate startups, we work with enterprises for adoption. These are GCCs, Indian enterprises, SMEs. We work on scaling at scale, right? So that's what we do. 20 years in industry. Before this, I was with IBM for 11 years. I was basically their global enterprise AI director. And last 2 years with NASSCOM, done a lot of interesting stuff. We'll be happy to share. With that, let me invite Arun.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ajay Ramasubramaniam. I run a company called Startup Réseau. Réseau is a French word for network. We essentially operate startup accelerators, innovation labs for corporates. We run startup exchange programs for governments. We work with universities. Been doing this for about a decade now and love working with startups. You mentioned about learning, and sitting in that room with esteemed panelists, I learned a fair bit of newer things. So looking forward to this. There's a lot of enthusiasts in the room, so there's a lot of enthusiasm as well. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Prayank. I'm part of a VC fund called Accel. We manage $24 billion across the globe. In India, we manage 2.5 billion. Essentially, you must have heard of Swiggy, Urban Company, Book My Show. All these are companies funded by us. I also had the luck of being roommates with Sachin Bansal and Binny Bansal when they started Flipkart. I mean, all credit, like we were 6 of us living in that 3-bedroom apartment in National Games Village, and they came and told all of us to join Flipkart as founding engineers, and nobody did. So that just tells you the kind of mistakes we have done in the past, and any of you founders over here who are following those footsteps, or even let's say, OpenAI footsteps, if you don't get people, don't worry, so that's, anyways, we are getting sidetracked. And I also run a small accelerator, Accel Atoms accelerator part of Accel only. We are going to be launching our second AI cohort pretty soon, in another couple of months. Last year we did, and we got some 450 applications for it. We ended up investing in 5 companies out of that. So that, just to give you some sense, so Accel can invest anywhere from $500,000 to $200 million into a company. Yeah.
I'm as far as from money, as close as he is. I'm an engineer by trade. I've built and done work across language models going back to 2018, built the first Hindi LM, so to say. And I see a lot of familiar faces here across computer vision, language, hello. And more recently, I worked with Qdrant, which is a search company. So I focus a lot more on information retrieval, search, those kind of problems these days. But obviously still interested in language generation and related problems. Over to you, Tanvi.
Hi everyone, I'm Tanvi. I work for this not-for-profit called People Plus AI. It comes under the Accel Foundation and is backed by Mr. Nandan Nilekani. Our thesis is quite simple. We come from the team of builders who co-architected the India DPI stack. So now the thinking is, if we've built out a very successful digital public infrastructure, how can we apply the same thinking to scaling AI for India? So what we primarily do is think about population scale use cases and foundational infrastructure, like data sets, compute, that would need to be in place for all of us to have a thriving AI ecosystem of not just builders, but also consumers of AI. So yeah.
I have a question, quick show of hands. How many of you have used the OpenAI or any other LLM API in the last 6 months, let's say? API, not the ChatGPT, the product. Okay, that's healthy. How many of you have spent more than $100 in last 6 months on that API? As a company or individual? Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, we can use that to remove. So, so the first question I would want to, ask, I think, let me start with you only, right? Nirant. So what's the AI landscape you're seeing in India, and how is it different from, the globe?
Okay, what is your spice tolerance for the answer?
As candid as possible. As candid as possible, right?
Okay, so here is the safe for work answer. We are very, very good at building applications across business and consumer, and we have shown that ability to adapt really fast. Since ChatGPT into building new products, interfaces, adapting into multimodality all across. And some of the best work in music, sound, speech actually is done by Indian teams or folks who are still in India, affiliated with Indian institutions in some shape or form. So we have done really well on that. So yeah, that's the safe for work answer. The more correct answer is we have really not built infrastructure as private industry since probably going back to 2000s. We did not build GPS or the iPhone or Android or any of the Android phones for that matter till I think like last 3 years. So to say that we will suddenly start building technology, including things like parts of the stack. So for instance, of the modern models, let's say any of the innovations in attention itself, like Rope or Alibi, none of them have come from Indian academia or private industries. So it's not like we are terrible only at things which need money. We are also terrible at things which need $100.
So just to substantiate, right? So as NASSCOM, we have done recently a survey. We have found there are around 300 GenAI startups, right? Out of which at least 180 odd we are connected. And 70 to 80% are just building application wrappers. 20% are thinking of building something unique. But again, I think that's what is the current scope, right? Now coming to probably Prayank. Prayank, what do you view?
Actually, I have something similar to Nirant, but I will nothing to discount. But I think I have met enough people, or let me put it this way: attention is all you need. Was from an Indian academic who happened to be in the US.
Yeah.
And is very prophetic because I think 7-8 years ago, I was talking to a Chinese gentleman, another investor, and he was like, all your talent is sitting in the US. Nobody's here. At that time, I was like, we have Freshworks and we have Flipkart. And I think now what we are entering into a phase is that innovation-led disruptions are needed.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are sitting in the US because they are employed by Facebook research, because they were part of Google research, because for me, what is very heartening as an investor is we are starting to find these teams who, for whatever reason, had to come back to India. Maybe it was they were longing for India, their parents were here. And those teams are starting to come out and build some products, which don't get popular media attention. Which, because they're building, it's not understood very easily. If I start telling, okay, I can do order and matrix multiplication, most media can't understand it, and it seems very unpopular. No, you can't know about it. But to Nirant's point, they're very far and few of those. We need a lot more, and I think that's not happening because we don't have enough researchers coming out and doing things. I was at a Google research event where Jeff Dean had come, and the amount of stuff which IIT professors who are doing research coming out was just mind-blowing. And I was like going to this professor, and why are you not putting this into commercialization? And they're like, I don't have time to do any of this. Why don't you talk to my PhD student? And you go to the PhD student, he's from a small town. His biggest thing in life is to become a professor. His biggest thing in his life is not to be another OpenAI kind of competitor. And I think I think we need winners, we need hero examples of researchers becoming billionaires in India probably. That's when we'll find the next wave of, okay, I can also do this. Because that's what happened in the first wave of startups. Okay, if these guys coming out of college can do it, then I can do it. I think that's the long-winded answer. But to that extent, in apps and infrastructure layer, so I have this framework. You have foundational models at the bottom, which are like maybe 10 to 20 companies in the world. Then you have infrastructure layers, which is MLOps, your data prep, you have all sorts of other things helpful to use the foundational models and improve performance. And then you have SaaS and consumer applications. I think we find And by definition, these are tens of thousands of companies, and the middle is like a couple of hundreds. So yes, you're right. I mean, you will find 80% of the companies, 90% of the companies only doing this, and only 10% doing this. And then that is even more amplified in India because of lack of researchers. So yeah.
So quick 10-second addition on that. For Uber to happen, which a lot of folks amongst us thought of as just an app back in 2011, 10, 12, whatever. iPhone had to have a GPS sensor, and then Google Maps as an infrastructure, both are which are core infrastructure which powered Uber, and the cloud had to happen. So what I'm trying to build a case for is apps are very valuable. And if somebody is in the engineering or investing business, both of which largely work on power laws, it's perfectly fine to aim for that like 10 power minus 3, 10 power minus 4, 1 in 1,000 outcome or 1 in 10,000 outcome. With the awareness that apps are not bad, and if you say, okay, this is just an app and hence it's not investable or it's not a company which I should work for, that's like you're handicapping yourself in ways which are not relevant.
Ajay, you want to?
So I'll just latch on to what Prayank mentioned. I think one of the things which is the aspirational quotient that Prayank spoke about, I think if I'm not wrong, BITS Pilani has carved out or is carving out a program which is focusing on researchers and PhD students to actually have that aspirational value to become entrepreneurs, not just by providing them with the infrastructure, but also providing them with the leeway, the funding that is required, so that at least you have some churn happening there. But then again, I think going back to your question and some of the conversations that we were having, I think there are a lot of underlying factors which probably play a big role in how a broader national AI strategy or how future of AI as the topic gets defined. I think one of the core, when you talk of AI or anything related to AI, I think one of the bigger factors is data. And data by itself is a massive domain. Now I'll give you an example. One of the top 50 global universities setting up an AI center of excellence was actually looking at use cases from India, which was data rich, and they could do something. One of the poster childs of India's payment success story was kind of presented to them as we can do something with this. They're like, that is not data. So anything that can be built on top of it, it requires certain quality of data, and none of the large Indian startups or unicorns or ones which are profiled have that in place for anyone to kind of work with that. So in the first place, I think that needs to be sorted. And then probably going on, I think the kind of investments, and when you're talking of infrastructure and then probably building out a layer of technology, I think the global giants are all investing billions of dollars, not just in India, but in several emerging markets. So that is going to be there. And the 80-20 principle that everyone talks about, you're definitely going to have the apps which are going to make lives easier, whether for large enterprises or for consumer needs. But that is the 80%, which probably is going to be 20% of total investments that big VC firms are going to make. But downstream as well, you need to see where are the people building those, whether it is the foundational models or enabling technologies on top of which these applications can sit. I mean, if you were to look at a fintech lens or from a fintech lens, I think there are a lot of companies who are not looking at building consumer-facing fintechs. They're all kind of focusing on the infrastructure layer or the rails on top of which some emerging technology or new businesses can be built. But someone needs to focus there. And that probably is going to come from researchers who are going to be working on whether it is foundational models or people who are kind of putting in the years behind doing the research. How are they going to get incentivized to actually build that layer so that you have many more success stories coming out which are consumer-facing? B2B, B2C is a different topic.
Coming to Tanvi.
So I think in the population scale space, and when we say population scale, that means hundreds of millions or maybe billions of AI transactions have to happen. We are definitely saying that the AI application will be high volume, but also has to be low cost. So now what generative AI has done is, at least it's triggered imagination. So because we are multilingual, our cultural context is so diverse. A lot of, 30% of WhatsApp transactions are voice first in India, which means that a lot of entrepreneurs and even students have started thinking about applications which, let's say, don't cater to the population sitting in urban cities, but have started thinking about what could be built for tier 2, 3, 4 geographies. Which means that the way in which you use that application, the style in which you consume it is very diverse. And that imagination has started. The problem is that, again, some of these, so for example, right, we meet a lot of startups who are thinking about community health and frontline health workers, and they have great solutions. But a solution, like technology development is not the hardest part for our country. It's finding collaborative spaces, test beds, that early adopter, that champion from the field who will actually be interested in plugging in that solution to their setting. So I think there is no dearth of R&D or engineering mind space in India, but that larger ecosystem around them for them to really thrive and create some of these and deploy some of these applications could use a lot of help.
Great, thank you. So probably to summarize, I think my viewpoint, right? So AI, let's assume AI, Gen AI to be an elephant, and we are seeing from all different sides, right? So working with government, I think, as I think we are discussing, government has laid out a India AI national plan, right? So now that has been devoted to give 1.2 billion, 10,600 crores for this spend. And as per government, I think when we are studying that and we are working with other governments to see how they're doing, one major portion was compute. Second definitely was very important data, researchers, skills, and adoption. Adoption, what government can leverage or probably emphasize is adoption at scale from government, right? So government, the central government will work with state governments and encourage adoption of AI, and they will fund, right? So I think it has to be all round, and then probably we can go to next scale. So let me move to next point, right? So probably the next question I would want to ask again to Prayank, okay? Prayank, so we discussed a lot of aspects around AI ecosystem. Now, the question of what I want to ask you is, right, if AI startup, or probably a few folks are thinking of AI startups, what are the attribute from your side, right? You will evaluate from a VC lens so that first you can fund, or probably them to take it up in a right manner.
Like I mentioned, the framework which I had, I think depending on a company which comes in, we look at, okay, it's a consumer application, it's a SaaS application, then you'll have tens of thousands of people competing against you. So what is the skill set you have to win? And typically, see, the consumer in that case doesn't care about what AI model you use. He cares about how do I get my job done, and does it get done with quality, on time, quickly. I don't have to put too much of my brain on it. So your UI, UX, your workflows, and then how do you get to the customer very quickly, which is GTM. So how smart is the team in making sure that their product reaches a customer is important, right? I think that layer is what is required to win. Like we were just discussing today morning, let's say if I give you the best AI in the world, can you create the next Instagram? And will that Instagram be different for US versus India? And nobody can answer that question. And the team which will build it will not be an AI team. It will be a consumer insights, consumer experience driven kind of a team. And then even if they build it, will it hit virality to become a next Instagram or a next WhatsApp? Because of WhatsApp UI is bad, it's really pathetic, but nobody here will shift away from it simply because the network is there, right? So you might have the best AI in the world, but you can't build the next WhatsApp. It's as simple as that. You need to have consumer insights. So I think that is very important over there. When you come to SaaS, I think in SaaS, AI is having a lot of implications because there are two parts. One is old use cases and new use cases. Old use cases is, okay, I was doing fraud detection. And now on fraud detection, I used to have ML models. And now with Gen AI, can I do something? I don't know. Until you know how to use, let's say, knowledge graphs or something. And there are different approaches for that, right? So you need to figure out old models, old use cases where money was already being spent. Does the person have an understanding of that, and how will whatever solution innovation he brings will be much more? So that is important, and then you are fighting against everybody else. There the problem is you already have other players sitting inside it. Can you build another Freshworks? Can you build another Salesforce? What is your right to win over there is hard. I think I am very excited about people who are building new use cases which are new, which were not there earlier, right? I'll give you one example. We've done one investment. It's a company called Réseau. What they do is they read all the product stories a user, product manager writes, and then converts them into, okay, hey developer, you have to take care of these 25 cybersecurity problems which can happen because of this, which was not possible before because a developer did not understand cybersecurity. There was limited resources of security engineers, so it was being manually done. Now LLM can come and do 100% coverage of that. So it's a new use case which has opened. There is no company in the world which does this. So at the start, you'll have only one or two competitions. So I think that's the other bit. Then you come to infrastructure layer. Okay, how do I do inferencing faster? How do I do data, huge data? Now we are talking about 400 billion models, 1 trillion models. New data sets, new data technologies will have to be formed. New data center technologies will have to be formed to be able to manage that compute of data. Now, does the person who's coming in has experience on that, or they're just out of college and have no idea, but they'll figure it out. And there is value in that also, but I think that's the kind of benefit from what we look in the skill set of the team. Where are they coming from for the problem they are solving? I think that is important. Having said that, I am very tying with this idea that to just give a lot of money to a lot of researchers, because from there a lot of new ideas will come up. But yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Yeah. On the same note, I'm working with IISc. In fact, NASSCOM is working with IISc to define 20 top research problems in AI. Right. So, and then we'll definitely see who can solve that. Right. So, okay. Let me come to Ajay. Ajay, the question I have for you is, there's a there's an idea, tech, product, commercialization. Right. What are your nuggets for startups or folks here? How should they think? What should they do? Yeah. Best practices.
I think the first step is to take that step. So if you're just kind of sitting at home or sitting in your lab or wherever and thinking about how you're going to change the world, I think you need to take that first step. And that first step is whatever is your hypothesis, whatever you're thinking is going to change the world, whoever is your customer. And I think we spoke about ability to spend or willingness to spend that $100, right? So go and talk to customers who probably are willing to pay you that $1 or 100 rupees or whatever that is, but talk to that customer first. I think the biggest challenge with a lot of startups, and not just today with AI startups, probably if you went back 10 years, if you went back 20 years, it would have still been the same. I mean, people courage might be a wrong word, but hesitating to go and talk to whoever is your potential customer to know whether they will pay for what you're building. Because once you build something, and then you go, maybe you go and say build a car which runs on hydrogen or whatever, but you have absolutely no infrastructure which is going to fuel that car is of no use to anyone. So similarly, I mean, whatever you're trying to build, I think first you need to, whichever sector that is, and I think Prayank made a very valid point of being fresh out of college and being inspired to go and build something is not wrong. But a lot of times, I think to solve larger challenges, you need to have certain basic understanding. If you're building fintech, unless and until you know how banks work, how the operational side of bank works, it's fine to not have that. Go and hire someone who probably has that. Because without that, you're not going to be able to go and solve that problem. So likewise, I mean, anything that you're building, first thing, whoever that customer is, whether it is a B2C kind of a customer, whether it's a B2B kind of a customer, whether government is a customer, if you don't know someone, find someone who knows that someone. Go and talk to that person to understand whatever you're building. A, do they need that product in the first place? B, are they going to pay you for that product? 3, if you're building something, are they willing to be the guinea pig? Are they willing to give you the opportunity to test, pilot, fail, succeed, whatever, and become that first customer? If you don't take that step and you're just sitting in your lab, you're sitting in your incubator, sitting at home, you're going to go nowhere. So I think for any startup building whatever, I think that is the first thing, fundamental thing you need to do before you build anything.
Thank you, Ajay. So, question to you, Nirant. We spoke about application wrapper, foundation model, all of that, right? But again, focused on the innovation around large language model or small language model, right? Does India need one? If it needs, what's the framework? What are the steps? And what are you seeing right now in the market? What's happening? And is any other country, apart from US and China, who are working on that?
So I think I'll answer the last question first. I think at this point, every major power has a sovereign company or a lab working on a foundational model, not because it's very similar to the nuclear program or the space research program or just knowing how to build roads or telecom at some point, or databases at some point actually, or operating systems at some point, that it's much more important to have the skill set to do this than to be and demonstrate that, okay, I can do this, than to actually do this, if that makes sense. So India, does India need to do that for sovereign reasons? Probably yes. Like, is there an incentive for a private player to do that capex? I'm not quite sure. So in the same way, like no private player will put in a lot of capital to just put a new GPU-heavy data center without a state subsidy around the materials, talent, and sometimes even capex. It's very hard for a private player to say, okay, I'm going to build a foundational model without any use case and just spend like a couple of $1 million on that. So that's the answer to your most recent question. To small versus large, the longer trend of all of these things is models get larger. 5 years ago, sorry, not 5 years ago, in 2018, when BERT came out, it is a 768 million parameter model. To put it in context, it can run on most Nokia Dabba phones which we get today in the market. So the inference can be done on that. And people were not willing to tinker with that because it used to cost quite a lot to update that, which we call fine tuning. People used to just like, we don't do that, we don't need the talent to do it also. And people continue to make that case even today in some shape or form, that okay, either we don't have the data, talent, compute, or cost. But the larger directionality is that today all of us use 7B, 34B, or sometimes even larger models, right? So every time you log into Instagram, you're using a model which probably spends more on like just giving you the next ad correctly than you can imagine, like a lot more than you can imagine. So the correct answer is yes, the models will get larger. And for today, for a commercial use case, you might say, okay, I'm going to use this as a pinpoint small solution for cost, latency, throughput, performance reasons. But the directionality is more general, more larger models. And directionality happens faster in the sense it happens on a timeline of 2 years, not 10 years.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, so Andre Karpati recently released this video of how to create your own GPT-2. Okay. Now, assume 2 years later, he released a video of how do you create your own GPT 3.5 or GPT 4, assuming like he's on that giving mode, right? Then the knowledge of how to create these models at that high performant level will be public. And we are seeing more and more companies, it's not just the OpenAI of the world, are able to create at least models which are current SOTA models, right? So I think the big question is, when is the delta leap which is going to happen? And to your point of whether India needs an LM or not, if let's say GPT-4 model becomes available 2 years from now to an Indian team, completely open source, they can do it themselves, what are they going to solve with it? And will they solve Indian problems or will they try to go after US problems? And I think the problem statements need to be discussed more, because today or tomorrow something other will happen. I think there's a race towards, I should own this model, because you don't want like Google search, nobody knows the algorithm and they control so much. Bing, and then all governments and all corporations, okay, I look bad in those results, it influences public policy, it influences opinion. I think that's where the challenge is. So I think the answer actually lies in her domain as to this will happen, that everything will become open source. What will you solve with it, right? What are the problems which you can do? I think that's where the more debate should be.
Great. Tanvi, question for you. So how do you relate this with the DPI movement, right? What are the parameters on AI which can be parallel to that, and how can India at scale leverage that?
Yeah, so specifically when it comes to DPI thinking now to this AI ecosystem, our team specifically is looking at very foundational problems, one of them being compute. So, and the way we are doing that is very bottoms up. We've been talking to lots of students, universities, early stage tech startups coming out of India, growth stage who have figured out what they want to build but now want to scale to millions of users inside India, outside of India. And what we've really figured out is that, the government, the India AI mission obviously is thinking about installing GPUs, but this is also, an inflection point, because the type of hardware that is required is very drastically changing, and it doesn't stop at one type of GPU. GPUs are evolving. There are other types of processing units that are coming out. So what we see is, taking a bit of an open network approach to solving this compute problem. So just like there is an ONDC, which is trying to build an open network for digital commerce, and it's trying to invite, your Kirana stores and your FMCG producers and sellers onto a network, which again is powered by protocols and standards, but makes them available to everyone, sitting anywhere. So the project that we are developing right now, it's called Open Cloud Compute. And that is really the DPI approach to thinking about compute. And it's very simple. It's saying that can we power an open network with protocols and standards where not just the global hyperscalers who have great cloud services, but also domestic data center providers and smaller cloud service providers in India who are doing a fabulous job, can we actually connect them on a grid, which is Again, not a marketplace, it's not a platform, it's just a grid where you have met a certain amount of standard, and you become then discoverable to the vast, a big population of students, startups, and eventually, hopefully, even enterprises who are starting to dabble in AI. So that's one place where, because, I mean, it really boils down to the fact that for it to be a DPI, for AI to be really scaling in India, you really have to think in the scale of billions of transactions happening maybe every month, which means that many inferencing calls happening, which means your cost of inferencing has to go down. Latency, if you're really serving people everywhere, pan-India, has to be something you think about. And one way to solve that is, can we just have a data center closer to the user, right? Also, we are talking about startups, but who is powering these startups or who's making these startups, right? It's talent. And you have to energize talent very early. So one key problem that we are seeing is how are students accessing compute today? And unfortunately, when we ask them, how do you do it? We ask them, what kind of projects are you building? And they said, wait, that's the wrong question to be asking. You should be asking me what compute is accessible to me, because that's the project I'm picking up. So today, if you're not giving enough compute to those players, how do you expect them to come out and be founding engineers or start their own startups, right? So that's really how we're thinking about it.
Great, thank you. Probably the last question, I'll start with you only. So I think we are top of the hour, but again, 2 points. One is, what are the opportunities, one opportunity, one challenge you see from your side for India to probably be at the top?
So I think, opportunity I would really say is in some of these population scale problem areas, what we call development areas. So I'll pick a very simple example of community health, right? We have in the range of 7 to 10 lakh frontline health workers today. Great place, because you could make a very targeted application for training, productivity improvement, clinical health outcome improvement, keeping them as users. And they are a population that has existed for the last 75 years. So there's a lot of information, data, experience there that you could build off. So that's a great opportunity area, because I honestly will say it's untapped, right? Not a lot of people think about that. I think the challenge is, how do you make something profitable in that space, right? How do the economics work out? And I think this is where, if your application is really adding that much value. So let's say there is a very highly resource-constrained community person who today is spending 50% of the time doing things that, let's say, an AI bot could do for them, could answer questions of citizens for. Then you can basically train these people to be of higher order, higher caliber. So the challenge is, how do you make, you made the application, how do you make it really work from a math, from a finance point of view? And this is where I think investors, but also government, right, has to create adoption strategies, because still people really use it, they don't understand it. So that's the challenge.
Thank you. Grant?
What was the question again? Challenge and opportunity.
One opportunity, one challenge.
Okay. Fun questions. One opportunity is, I think we have a generation which is finally going into middle class, and we are spending a lot more, and our spending pattern hasn't really shifted. So we spend a lot. So sure, luxury has come in, and there's a lot more BMWs being sold in India, but we still continue to invest very heavily as a household into healthcare, education. These are our very large expenses. So geriatric care, healthcare, these are sub-functions of those. I think there's a lot more room to play there, because services are still expensive, and as labor costs, India becomes more expensive to hire a nurse or a doctor. I think that efficiency play really makes sense. So when I graduated an Indian dev to a product engineer dev to a US a SF dev, the ratio was 1:5. Today it's closer to 1:3, and I expect that within maybe next 10 years it will go to 1:2 or 1:1. Right, at that point, saving, you're basically going to be buying the same dev tools, and India becomes a tier 1 buyer of dev tools, which also means this will all go downstream, and making tools for Indian doctors, lawyers finally becomes financially viable, hopefully within the next 3-4 years. Yeah.
Okay. Challenge?
Financially viable.
Same, I think. Yeah.
I think in terms of opportunities, I have this big, huge problem that we used to, like when I was a child, my mother used to say, you're sitting in front of the idiot box. Now my kids are sitting in front of the computer box or Netflix box. So technology is giving us a lot of free time, but we are digressing towards a situation where every human, including myself, spends copious amounts of hours in front of, and AI, let's say, starts giving us a lot of free time. How are we going to finally utilize it? I think I don't know the answer to that question. And I think somebody who can make us more healthier, more sociable, have more friends over, I think that is super important. That's an opportunity. Somebody who can figure it out will definitely, I will spend a lot of money on it. I am sure every parent will spend a lot of money on it. I mean, this is a healthier, better way of living. Now imagine GLP-1 drug coming out and it's the promise of making you less fat. And then everybody's like, we talk about AI, but I think the actual real life impact is from there, right? So I think that's one big opportunity. How do you make sure this technology can be used for the betterment of your own life? I think in the challenge perspective, I think there's a specific challenge with investors in India, which is whenever we meet a company and we have this bias, Indian company kar payegi kya? Ye wahan pe Silicon Valley ke andar will they be able to compete with those guys? And I think it's our attitude a lot of times. It's an attitude of a lot of entrepreneurs also, which limits them from trying to go for the big ones, big solutions. And I think that we have to just overcome that mental barrier. See, money will follow in India. Like today, money is not there, but 10 years from now, per capita GDP grows to $6,000 or whatever. We will start having more and more companies. But I see the mental attitude is a big problem. That's the challenge.
Ajay?
So let's kill two birds with one stone: challenge and opportunity. What would be the one word which kind of can answer both questions? Anyone? Anyone else? Yeah, part of resources is a broad category, but that one word. Not money, man. Money is, like you said, money follows. It's people, right? Challenge and opportunity is both people, talent, right? Because if you look at it just from a challenge perspective, or where the opportunity also lies, is probably if you're getting people up the ladder, whether it is researchers, whether it is right at the bottom. I mean, even if you look at someone like an Accel Innovation Mission and the likes, they're all kind of doing tinkering labs at school, grade 8 to grade 10, so that you get people up. And you spoke about computing power that's available, all of that. But when you look at it from an opportunity standpoint, and if you look at it as an AI pyramid, not looking at use cases, financial services, healthcare, entertainment, they're all kind of use cases. But you need people or that talent, to build the foundational models. You need people who are probably building an NVIDIA or an Apple or a Google from India. On top of that, you need people who are probably building applications which sit on top of it. So all of that will happen if you solve the fundamental problem or the challenge, which probably Tanvi is trying to do, which is catering to people. So once you do that, probably even the opportunity, right? I mean, you need someone to build the core infrastructure. You need to have people who are working on data. You need to have people who are probably building the hardware part of it. And then you have people who are building 80% of the top of the pyramid, which is consumer-facing applications. So.
Great. Probably, let me give my view also, right? I will tell you the opportunity and the challenge. And much of that is said, but again, as we see in the globe, right? That's the opportunity. The globe opportunity is that, the population is aging. As the population is aging, the productivity decreases, right? And India right now is at the right juncture. We have a very, very youthful population. Now we can leverage them to do a lot of things, right? Definitely build a lot of products, have skill, deploy. So India can be a massive powerhouse to, sort of catalyze AI globally. That is what is opportunity, right? My fear is that in this whole big, sort of thing, we are missing up on the research thing, right? We are hardly putting any effort in research. All good researchers who I know, they come out of college, they go to US. They get a lot of support when they do their PhDs in IITs, ISCs, but they go to US, right? The big brain drain still happening, right? One probably element I would want to share. The AI War is a book written by Kai-Fu Lee. Everyone should read. How China brought everyone back, right? So they are diaspora back. One significant thing was they directed that whole, capital or probably the brain capital going out back in India, back in China, right? Similarly, we have to do that. We don't have that moment right now. I think probably that's a big challenge, right? We don't have methodology also. Because their government was a big catalyzer. Here, government still doesn't know how to solve this, right? So I think these are two things I would say. Yeah.
So just like China he mentioned, right? Even a country like Vietnam, much smaller country, I think a lot of opportunities which moved away from China went to Vietnam. But if you look at it, if you look at their education system, right? So they do sponsor a lot of kids to go out for undergrad, postgrad, but they sign a bond. They sign a bond to come back after completing those 5 years. And that's why probably a lot of jobs which kind of moved out of China, a big percentage of them, even engineering and all, if you look at Grab and the likes, all of them, Uber, they all kind of moved their engineering centers from multiple cities or multiple countries within Southeast Asia and China to Vietnam because talent was available. And these are all talent which got educated abroad, they all came back.
Absolutely, I agree. So I have got a hand, we have 5 minutes. Couple of questions, anyone in the audience? Okay. We can start with here, 2 people together, I think, yeah. Go ahead, please. We can hear.
The adoption or the rate of innovation has been increasing daily. So it took 50 years to create a revolution in last 2 centuries, and now in last 20-30 years it takes 1 decade to create a revolution. But now with LLM models coming up, right? So it takes only 1 year to disrupt the whole technology. And I can see with ChatGPT releasing a model every year, lot of startups are getting destroyed parallelly too. So how, as your community is looking after it? Because you are the people who are funding it or growing this startup ecosystem, right? So how are you looking into this so that next coming ChatGPT update cannot disrupt the future startups?
Disruption is the name of the game, right? But again, anyone wants to answer? I can add.
I think the question you're asking, see, why is the rate of adoption of technologies going up? It's not because the technologies are better, it's because the layer of distribution about the technology is very good. So you get to know something, new idea on WhatsApp, everybody gets to know about it. And bad technologies also get distributed equally quickly well. So like for example, there was this whole thing about Devon, suddenly, oh, everybody, all jobs are gone, and suddenly you realize, okay, it's not probably the best technology in the world. So I think the distribution of a good technology will virally grow. That is going to definitely happen. What are you building today that is going to survive 3 years or 4 years from now? Like I said, 2 years from now, GPT-4 architecture will be public. Let's assume that. I have to assume that as an investor. Then what is it that you're building today that will survive that event, which is going to be a major disruption event? That's the way to think. That's the way at least I think about it, right? And you have to find people who are also thinking in that dimension, right? So that's why people don't like GPT wrappers, for example. So.
Cool. I think we'll move to next question. Let's give it
Hello, my name is Suren. I had one question for you, as well as Tanvi and how NASSCOM is going to provide the compute for any AI technology. One is compute, another one is data. Anyhow, India is the largest population in the world. We had lots of data, and in data we had another concern: how is the data privacy has been protected, and which is going to protect in DPDP Act, which is going to kick in within few months, and how the NASSCOM is going to handle this. And it's very unclear. It is very unclear on it which companies are exempted from this and which are included in this Act.
Okay. So compute, right? So
yeah.
The work on compute started in March 2022, right? We were pushing compute. We were working across body, right? Government, private party, global, right? So I can't even tell you how many meetings we have had between Jensen and Modi, Jensen and so many people, right? So the point is that we were trying to catalyze. We have catalyzed. There are few things which have come out, right? One part is government is allocating 6,500 crores approximately to compute for next 5 years, right? The other part is there are private players who got encouraged and they are putting money. Yota is one. Yota is going to build 25,000 GPU cluster by next year. Tata Communications, Reliance. We have E2E here. They were the first AI GPU cloud in India, right? So again, they are adding a lot of capacity, right? So government and private player, they are adding capacity, right? I will also want to give you a view, right? A lot of global GCCs who operate here, they are adding a lot of capacity in India, right? I know for a fact there are few global GCCs, they're building their AI COEs, with that they're building hundreds and hundred GPU capacity, which again is going to the Indian companies only, right? So that's how the problem is getting solved. For startups, again, startups have a lot of leverage point from all of them, so they can do that. The other point is DPDPA. So DPDPA, definitely, the act is getting formulated, right? And everyone and anyone who is operating in Indian jurisdiction will be, sort of liable on that. Now, what is NASSCOM doing? We are, we focus on enterprise and startups, right? So we're building DPDPA handbook, which is in the making, right? By September, it should be out.
Yes.
And we'll do a lot of evangelization sessions, workshops, to enable, enterprises, startups, even a lot of, corporates on this. So that's what we'll do, right? But again, I think it will not stop at that, because as we go ahead, EU AI Act is coming, right? A lot of our Indian companies are working globally. So as we speak, we are already working on EU AI Act sort of checklist, right? Which again will be given to startups and enterprises who will leverage it as we go, right? So, yeah, I think long answer, but I think this is what I want to say. Tanvi, you want to add anything?
I mean, I think what is great and what I think we all know is that we accept that these are two areas that have to be solved for, and there needs to be more thought given there. So I think for us specifically, for the compute point of view, I think one thing that is very clear to us is that there needs to be more choice and there needs to be more access to good, reliable compute. There are two ways to do it. One is to help existing domestic players who are already serving in this market, showcase them, make them more discoverable today, because frankly today there are a lot of startups and even students and researchers who don't even know about them. So the first thing is improving discoverability. The second is, how do you invite more investment, more data centers, and these are not just, I would say, the mega data centers that are in the 5-6 big cities, but also there are a bunch of startups coming out right now who are coming up with edge data.
Edge computing,
right? And they have already started deploying. They are working in tier 2 cities. They are, again, their capacity can only support maybe specific workloads and use cases, but they are there. And the way you support them is by investing in them, by ensuring that there is policy which recognizes them as reliable providers in this business. So that's the way we are. And I mean, I completely agree with you that there needs to be more compute and it needs to be solved for, but it's also I think it's a long problem to solve for, right? Like, it's a very long value chain.
Yeah, because as we feed more data, we need more compute. And the computing power is not sufficient what we had as of India. And we all depend on CSPs, world CSPs, and that is not going on. And another question, how we are in the race with quantum computers.
I think we can take it offline.
Quantum computing.
We will just continue later. So I think the time is up. Can we take one question or it is up?
Just one question, sir.
Okay, one last question.
Sir, so as a PGP student and I'm Bangalore, I just have two questions, not one. The first is... so there's a very strong opinion of our Silicon Valley startups saying that India is far behind in the generative AI space. We can see how Ola tried to jump in the ship and how there are controversial opinions on their efficacy. So do you suggest for students like us to actually go to Silicon Valley for the next 3-4 years and then come back and be a part of the next decade once in a century opportunity in India first? Second, there's been a lot of buzz about the cloud systems being outsourced to Azure, Microsoft, Google, and the Amazon ecosystem. Ola tried to have a play to, let's say, indigenize the cloud ecosystem. So does NASSCOM or government have in its play to do something like a UPI ecosystem so that all cloud data system is there in India itself?
Okay, so probably questions for me, I think. Second one I'll answer and then first one. So the second question's answer is this, it's an, centralized and distributed network. That has been happening since ages, right? So since 50 years, it was centralized, distributed, right? cloud came in because it was easier in the pocket of the CIOs, right? Amortized, right? Now, in that, a lot of good technologies were built, right? Now, again, those technologies could be deployed on private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, all of that, right? That's what is happening, essentially. Now, the big hyperscalers, they definitely have big pods. They are giving those services, and they have, humongous people, humongous skilled people who can deploy that. But again, what trend I see is people are moving back to, sort of multi-cloud and private and public mix, because cost is a big issue, right? Again, the point what you said in this cross-border, data. I don't think right now India has a law on that. We are not, I think, currently working also on that, because that was not covered in DPDPA. In the AI or the next version of the Indian Digital Act, there might be some points coming on that, but again, I think that's forward-looking thing. Right? The first question: are you a tech or a management?
A computer science graduate and a management student in a PGP program. I'm manager.
Okay. So the point what I raised and a lot of us raised is brain drain, right? So the shortage of people who can really put in everything in India and build in India. Right? So I think, it is my recommendation will be definitely you can if you have an opportunity, work in Indian companies who are doing deep research, work with them, build them, and definitely you will gain from that.
Sorry, I disagree with that. I agree, because have you seen the movie Kalam? Indian ISRO sent Kalam to US to learn how to get the rocket built, the propulsion engine. So see, knowledge today, we are talking about talent. So you have to learn from the best talent wherever it is today. And then hope that you come back and sow the seeds. Yeah, okay, we are done. So and I think specifically for IMB, first you have to unlearn whatever IMB has taught you. You have to go back to tech roots, right? Because as a business student, you will always look at the short term, kahan pe naukri achhi lagegi and kahan pe quickly I'll make profit. The problem with research is that research doesn't work that way. Research works in long term. You have to be very patient, no answer, no failure. So Jensen has taken 40 years to get to this point when NVIDIA, OpenAI took 7, right? Google had the transformer paper, couldn't do anything with it. It was open source. Transformer was open source for anybody to pick it up, right? So you have to first accept failure. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. And, I'll stop there. Thank you.
So we can continue.